make a splash there. But, you know, when we fast forward a few weeks, maybe with the addition of the mini set, like maybe this deck will just go away if it's so reliant on like an almost exact mulligan.
I do like that that is a criticism you hear a lot. It's like, oh, I only lost to that spell mage player because they drew their good card on turn 2. Like, said the weapon rogue player, or like the OTK demon hunter player. Like, what do you mean?
Hey.
Like, it's a card game. Of course you win more when you draw your good cards. That's how it works.
You can't say that of Hunter. We don't have any good cards, so we just have to win games the good old-fashioned way.
Runner, what do you mean?
Hey, on 2, that's not that good. You need coin.
Yeah, true.
But here we go. Test number 1 done for xBlyze. Incantus Flow played on 2. And xBlyze with a swift nod, mainly because he nods due to not seeing Incantus Flow, I imagine, from Frenetic.
And we're off. It's turn 4 already for xBlyze next turn. And his coin in Secret, another win port, Deck of Lunacy. He's going to play the Deck of Lunacy. Over to xBlyze. It's turn 4 for the xBlyze. Can we get a turn 4? Oh, I'm not going to do that for the whole game.
Can somebody get us another Dormu?
Yeah. This is kind of the classic matchup, right? Is Lunacy versus Incantus Flow Burn. That's kind of the 2 different masks that this deck can wear.
Which one would you rather wear, Sotil?
I'd rather be the Burn deck, honestly. Like, I'm not. If you want to ask me the question, like, who wins the game more, it might be Lunacy. It was certainly Lunacy on 2, right? Lunacy on 2 won the game more for sure. Lunacy on 4 versus Incantus on 2, not so sure. But for me, like, it's just kind of my natural bias, right? Is that I'd rather have the consistent strategy in my deck where I know what I'm planning for, right? And not have to rely on, like, well, if this card generates me a board, I win. If it's some useless, like, you know, card draw thing, then I lose, right? Like, I do understand that, you know, it's a very, very powerful option if you get the right things. But for me, especially if you have a little bit of early pressure going down, I'd like to be the Burn Mage in this position.
And well, xBlyze, speaking of Burn, does have that Egwin in hand, which is pretty nice. Frenetic does have Phoenix down, though, and we've seen time and time again, when you can generate a Phoenix, it's a really, really big deal because it's spell damage on your own terms. It's not like, say, xBlyze has played this Egwin. Well, if Frenetic kills the Egwin, then it's not actually done any bonus damage, right, with that effect, whereas Frenetic can make use of this Phoenix on demand. He has had to Flame Strike, though, and that is arguably a slow turn there from Frenetic to just hand it back over to xBlyze. Oh wait, that's a 3rd Incantus Flow in hand there, Sal. Do you see it?
I do, actually, yeah. Yeah, I can spot it there, just second from the right, just hanging out. Yes, as you mentioned, Frenetic does have Phoenix down, so even if he gets KO'd, he'll be able to revive himself with 1 HP, and then even then his Limit Break will be active, so he'll be even more powerful.
Where's his overly large sword?
It went on for so long, I had to wait so long to make that joke that it just doesn't, it's not even funny anymore.
No. It's not your best work.
That's right. Solid 6 out of 10.
I tell you what's alright, 1 mana Cascading. That's a good card. I'd say Frenetic's draws with, you know, kind of rolling the dice on Lunacy, of course, have turned out pretty well. If this board survives, he can survival the fittest. If it doesn't survive, he has a 5-mana Cenarium Ward against a deck that wants to burn him down. Like, he's ticking all the boxes so far.
He is, yeah. And it's kind of lined up that way, right? It's what I talk about. His 5-mana card ended up being Glowfly Swarm, which is the absolute nuts. But, you know, the 5-mana cards can also just be, there you see it, Cutting Class, for example. That is another 5-mana option that it can be. I think the 5-mana options are the most Feast or Famine. You know, I did go on a rant a long time ago saying that, you know, Deck of Lunacy is nowhere near as random as people think it is, and I stand by that. But I do think the 5-mana slot is one of the ones with the highest variance, because you can go from, you know, Glowfly Swarm or Stand Against Darkness, whatever the, you know, Summon all the Silverhand Recruit guys is, which are obviously nutty spells to just generate boards out of nowhere, to just absolute unplayable garbage that you don't want. So the fact that Frenetic rolled Survival of the Fittest instead of Nagran Slam, he needed one of his 5-mana spells to make a big board for him. And the fact that he got both of those things to line up is definitely a high roll for Frenetic.
Yeah, and even this Survival of the Fittest, it's definitely not bad because there are 3 minions in hand for Frenetic, but it also could have been worse for xBlyze, right? Only 2 minions to have to deal with. 1 actually took some damage anyway, so he gets to peel away 1 without much effort. So it's still kind of even, and I think like xBlyze is still in an okay spot. But yeah, Frenetic's draws are going to start to really stack up. I'm not even going to try and explain what xBlyze is doing this turn, because cards are just flying left, right, and center.
Phoenix down, couple of Brain Freezes in hand that he can line up for big clears, and a Mask that he can drop in a couple of turns as well. He's only a Fireball or two away from lethal here, and those Fireballs are incredibly cheap, as is any card draw he can piece together.
I'll tell you what's not that cheap is actually Frenetic's hand. Even though, yes, a 4-mana Mask is good, to go into this secret turn, it doesn't feel very good, does it? Like, he has the 3 big minions, but then expensive spells. So one got counterspelled. He could still be on the receiving end of a Netherwind Portal, for all Frenetic knows.
Oh, Donk Tonk is pretty insane here.
That Grand Slam Dire Frenzy!
Mirror Entity is going to... I mean, that's a huge
Just
deal.
lethal on the other side? Oh, no, he can Dunk Tank, okay.
This has to go face, right? To protect against Rigged Fair Game. But even then, that doesn't clear. Like, I'm so unsure about that turn. Like, there's so many secrets in play that you can kind of just play around all of them, right? And the best way to play around all of them definitely did not involve playing a giant minion or dealing 0 damage to your opponent's face, right? I think Rigged Fair Game and Mirror Entity were the first 2 things to play around that turn, because you've just given your opponent 11 damage and a bunch of double discounted cards with which to do this. Mask, clear the board, refreshing spring water, refill mana, Apexis blast you in the face. You're dead, son. It's just game.
Oh, what happened? I'm not sure, but it went wrong somewhere for Frenetic, because for me, it was the second the mini mage was played, I think, was the biggest blunder. You can talk about whether you know face damage should have happened or not with that Dunk Tank, but the Dunk Tank, I think, at that point had to kill a minion because there was so much damage facing him the other way. But I think the mini mage just wasn't needed. As you mentioned, with so many secrets being played, you know that it's almost all of them. So guess what? Entity is a secret. Did he need to play the minion there? I don't think so. And certainly now I think Frenetic will think he didn't either.
Yeah, I think that was emphatically not it. I think that term was just kind of garbage, all things considered. I think Mask of Cthulhu was top of my list of cards that I wanted to get played that turn, just because 1 damage to face, probably, from the Mask of Cthulhu would deny a Rigged Fair Game if it was there, which I think it was pretty likely to be. But honestly, you know, I made the call early on, saying that, you know, I do like being the burn deck in that scenario, and you can see why, right? Like, you do have to sit there and just think about, well, let's, you know, acquire some resources, right? I need my turn to play Skull, I need my turn to play Nourish, I need my turn to draw some cards. Maybe then I have one turn where I didn't quite get all the spells to line up perfectly and I have to top deck something good the next turn. In that 2 to 3 turn gap while you're setting up, the mage on the other side can just, you know, draw 8 cards that are discounted and just set up for this insane burn plan with Devolving Missiles on the other side, and that's exactly what xBlyze did. And even though that game felt like it was over in a heartbeat and the players weren't considering their decisions very much, I think xBlyze knew exactly what he was doing and executed on the Incanter's Flow game plan perfectly.
And it also looks like, taking a quick look at things, it looks like xBlyze did not choose to switch to his secondary, and both players are just rocking the primary again. At least if the information I have is correct, because he still runs 1 Netherwind in his primary, which is in hand right now.
Yes.
I believe there won't be any counter spells.
Wow. Okay. Always fearful about this play, like never know how correct or incorrect it is still to this day, where you do the early discover and get the Phoenix, and then you just kind of drop it because you have the 1 mana to spend. Because you are sitting there like, well, you know, I don't have a Crown Session in my hand. There's no guarantee that this is going to pay me off in 2 turns' time. I just have to kind of hope that it does. But at the same time, you know, spend your mana, and I'm sure you'll find something to do that pays off that card in 2 turns' time. Frenetic's already smirking. Yeah, that's not it. Talon.
Talon plus Overdraw Subtle is the problem here as well.
Yep. Is there an objectively funnier minion to get in Spell Mage randomly than Talon Fordring?
I'll have to leave that one with me, I'll have a think, but it's close up there if it's not first.
He does have what we will now forever dub the Felcane available to him, though, which is pretty sick, right? He has Astromancer, Solarian, Talon, kill your own Astromancer, all that business that we saw Felcane doing.
Yeah, shame he might be dead before that's relevant.
Will he?
I will crush your
He's the flow gamer this game, remember? Like, he's actually in a decent position, all things considered.
And speaking of which, second flow.
And it's like he's just going to go about it the vanilla way. Just get his Astromancer dead and then try and play Talon to pull it back out again.
The biggest problem Frenetic has, which is, I guess, a good problem to an extent, he has double flowed, so his deck is very cheap, but he has like super expensive minions in hand and 5 of them, which means that he, even though he has the ability to, he can't really go off with a big draw turn because he doesn't have the hand space, and it's going to be a while before he does. Also, that Apexis Blast is, of course, deactivated, at least for now, with the Prime in the deck. This feels like it almost has to be Talon this turn.
Oh, you can't make me, Raven. No, you cannot make me make that play. I hate it.
Well, you're not in charge, Sol. Frenetic is, okay?
Yeah. And actually, you know, genuinely, like, revulsion aside at what I was forced to watch that turn, I think it was probably the correct play.
That's what I'm talking about as well. This handful of big minions is tough because I think Frenetic would have loved to be able to play a minion out this turn, but just too afraid of this huge minion on Blyze's side. I think even though Frenetic has incanted twice, it feels like he's still playing the defender as opposed to being super aggressive here. So Blyze doing a good job of, you know, keeping up the tempo right now.
I think that was a much better turn for the Talon if you wanted to go for it as well, just because it played around Mask specifically, right? Like, you don't necessarily want to Mask into that board. It did leave the big board state up, which is scary, though, which also made me think about Ring Toss, to just go for, like, Netherwind and Ice Barrier or something, just to...
I was thinking about, if he played Talon, could it just be pinged down?
Sure.
Oh, another, like, full mask. Blyze is only a couple of cards away from a good time, and he has a ton of card draw, and like we said, there's no real way for Mage to heal.
Raven is lethal. It's just always lethal.
Oh, Blyze not enjoying this amount of draw.
He's just got 7 mana again. Nothing in his deck costs anything, and he just got 7 mana back after casting Mask of Cthulhu already. So absurd. Looking at Aegwin, I guess, yeah, picks up the Aegwin. He's run out of card draw from this point, so I kind of feel like it's, again, a Talon to fish for that Prime, right? Like, the Prime might be his way out, but decides to hold off. He's just going for the pressure with the Raz on the other side, which is, you know, realistically, I suppose, threatening counter-lethal the other way around, but now Blyze has to go digging for lethal of his own. He can hit Fireball right now. He doesn't, but remember, his deck is still full price, so he is now out of lethal outs. Cannot draw cards and hit cards that will get him lethal.
Does have double devolving though, so he can really reduce down this board, and has that combustion as well, so probably would have actually quite liked to hit the Water Elemental.
Okay, good enough. Ooh, Thanos, not a good one though. Brain freeze.
Ooh, is that no card draw?
No card draw, no burn somehow in this hand.
Mask, but guess what? That's not reduced though.
Yeah. Inexplicably, these two players are somehow failing to kill each other from this position in the game, which is outrageous.
Okay, Blyze gets the Refreshing Spring Water. He has more card draw. That's combustion, though.
Come on! Are you joking?
Cast a spell. I want to cast a spell.
Shooting Star? What is this garbage? We can go Brain Freeze, Shooting Star, Combustion, yep, which cleans it up. does have enough health as a buffer for the Mask of Cthulhu, but that cram session could be a very, very big deal here. Yeah. And so the chain begins. Yeah, that technically pushes 1 extra damage. Why not? Unbelievable. They're still alive, Raven.
What's even left? He does have that Fireball, does have a Pexis Blast still in there, and of course the Prime, but I think most importantly, just 2 of those cards in the deck are... There's the Fireball! Oh, Frenetic knows, sees it locked in, and xBlyze is going to be your winner for match number 2. In, again, just no surprise, super fast-paced Mage Mirror. There was, I think both players took a break for some water towards the end of that game, but it is over. xBlyze takes the series 2-0, and both players just fishing and doing everything they can possibly do to get hold of like just the one burn card they really needed to end the game, because just as much if Frenetic had that mask, which he did have, if he drew any of the burn cards, they would have been cheap enough to play together, because obviously he's 2 incanters in. So that was just the weird game, and you see a slight issue that Frenetic did have, where most of the minions he had were just unplayable, and they spent the whole game just sat in his hand doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I do very much wonder about whether Frenetic was just supposed to bet on the Prime at that point, right? It's because there was no minions on the other side of the board, so any Mask that gets played, any Fireball that gets played, any Runed Orb that gets played, they're all going directly to face if he gets it off the tail end there. But instead, he focused on pressure first and foremost, card draw secondary, looking for those burn spells to end the game. But let's not forget, it was Frenetic that was the most under pressure. He was a solitary Fireball